Welcome to the MIT Leadership Center video series. Today we're talking with Jared Curhan, the Sloan Distinguished Associate Professor of Organization Studies. Jared, glad to be with you today.
Nice to be here.
So whether it's children or adults, leaders leading organizations, this negotiation word, what are the key things you've learned, the key insights you've gained about negotiation? Because you spent a lot of energy researching, studying, putting it into practice.
Right.
What matters most about negotiation to you?
That's a good question. I'd say for me, negotiation is a source of empowerment. Negotiation is how we achieve things in the world. Maybe you could substitute the word leadership there, and probably that sentence would make just as much sense. But to me, leadership involves front and center the process of negotiation and influence. And it could be influencing one other person, or it could be influencing a group of people or an organization to create change.
Interesting. That's interesting. You and I were talking earlier about questions, and you love to ask questions.
Oh, absolutely.
What do we know about that?
So one of the most challenging aspects of negotiation is balancing a tension between empathy on the one hand with your counterpart, and also assertiveness for yourself. And so many times people try to wrestle with the idea of, there are certain things I want to accomplish in the negotiation, but I also want to maintain the relationship with my counterpart. And so asking questions is a great way to do that.
For example?
So for example, if I were negotiating on behalf of my salary, and I wanted to be purely assertive with no empathy, I would say, look, I deserve to be paid more. I have other offers from other firms, and unless you pay me more, I'll accept those offers.
Got it.
That's purely assertive. But if I wanted to be more empathic, I might ask a question. I might say something like, I really want to be sure that my compensation in this situation is commensurate with what I'm receiving elsewhere. And I've done some research on what the salaries are in other places. I've received some offers, and I'd be curious if maybe we could compare our research. I'll share with you some of mine. You can share some of yours with me. Is that okay with you? In other words, I might check with the other side more and try to get their input into the process. I think the more people feel like they're part of the process, the more committed they are to the outcome. So engaging the other party in a negotiation is this okay? Does this sound like the way you think we should resolve this? Is often a beneficial way to not only get good outcomes, but also achieve high subjective value in your negotiations.
So how would a negotiator figure out what the right question is to ask?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think before any negotiation, you really need to prepare. In fact, most negotiation theorists argue that preparation is about 90% of the determinant of whether you will be successful in the negotiation. So I would say one of the key ways to prepare is to ask yourself, what do I not know?
So, this is one of the things I'm intrigued with, is this notion of, blindside, surprises. They almost always come from what we don't know.
Right.
Is there anything in that preparation process that helps them better to uncover that blind spot?
That's a really good question. I think the closest thing I would have to something that can help you discover your own blind spots is to ask yourself what you're worried about in the negotiation. Like, for example, I'm worried they'll ask me if I have any other offers. That would be a question that sometimes people don't like to be asked, especially if they don't have any other offers. And so often I'll ask people before a negotiation, ask yourself what is the question that you really hope they won't ask you. So you asked about being blindsided. I think people should ask themselves, what would you be blindsided by in a negotiation? And then bear down and really think about what's the best way I can possibly answer that question. For example, if somebody asked me, do you have any offers? I might think in advance about that and think, well, I guess without lying and saying that I do have an offer when I really don't, maybe I could say, I'm actually at the beginning of the process, and I have more conversations that I plan to have as we go forward. So instead of saying I do or I don't have other offers, I'm implying that if you don't give me a good offer, I'm going to be collecting others very soon.
Wow, what a journey. Thank you for your thoughts, for your insights, and for your commitment to something that does make a difference.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.